George, and I'm in my final semester at UCSI University. Today I'll be presenting to you Kopi O, which is our final semester project located at Bukit Mentajam, Penang. Alright, so let's start with project 1. These are my dissections, and lastly, this is the collocation. So these are the elements that I dissected from the town. This one representing the landmarks of the town. This one representing the town as a machine. This one representing the used and unused spaces of the town as an inverted city. And this is the final collocation. Moving on, here are my site synergies. This represents the Chinese culture of Bukit Mentajam. These are the variations of tiles found at Bukit Mentajam. This represents a nostalgic element of the old train, as well as representing all of the single elements of the train which work together to form a whole system. This one represents the density and non-density of both sides of the town separated by the train tracks. This represents the used and unused spaces being inverted. And lastly, this represents the human behavior of Bukit Mentajam town, where instead of vehicles, the street is dominated by pedestrians and also stall owners. Now let's move on to our urban strategies. So these are the strategies that I implemented to get my final design. Firstly is to connect the town's social hearts towards my site. Next is linking the voids and pocket spaces of the town to create a network of activities towards my site. And of course, creating a network between intergenerational communities from both sides of the town by implementing relevant programs. As mentioned earlier, both sides of the town were disconnected by the train tracks, so I wanted to create and redefine a connection between the communities of the both sides. And most importantly, also identifying the powerhouses of the town to integrate potential programming. In my case, I identified the coffee factory as one of the main powerhouses of the town, and I will talk about that more later. So these are some of the earlier stages of my urban strategy design, where networks were created from the voids and pocket spaces of the town leading into my site. This is one of the existing landmarks of the town viewing into my project to create a new landmark for the town. And lastly, this represents the initial bigger picture of how I wanted my project tree to be by connecting both sides of the town and also by creating links between the buildings. So, as mentioned before, I recognized the coffee factory of Bukit Mentajam, which is Simhat Hand Coffee, as one of the main powerhouses of the town, with the reason being the whole town's coffee supply are supplied by them. And I thought that they were quite important to the town, as we all know that Bukit Mentajam is a dying town, and people go there mostly just for food and especially the coffee. So, although there are various restaurants all around Bukit Mentajam serving different food, every restaurant and kopitiam will still serve drinks and especially Bukit Mentajam's coffee. So by recognizing them as one of my potential clients, I came up with some of the main programming of my project. So these are the earlier stages of my main programming, ranging from production and economics, creation and recreation, educational and institutional, recreation and leisure, and of course connection and interaction. Explaining more about the main programming and how I developed it in the following slides. So first off, this is my site plan. I decided to have my project at the end of Jalan Pasar, Jalan Station, and also Lorong India, as well as a portion of the opposite side. This is to lead pedestrians of all three lorongs towards my project and also breaking the disconnection between both sides of the town by creating a link. The coffee factory, which is located here at Lorong India, will also be linked to my project. Moving on to my basement plan, where car parking and also motorcycle parking are provided, with 2 entry points to the floors above, to the residential and also institutional block. Here is my ground floor, where we defined the main programming to 3 main programs, namely community and domestic, institutional and experiential, and last but not least, industrial exposition. So the main design intention was to educate the people and the public about the production of coffee. So one of the strategies implemented was to spread out the production of coffee throughout the whole building. So the production of coffee starts from the far right over here, which is the industrial exposition, And next, it goes into the institutional and experiential over here, where people are able to learn and experience coffee. And lastly, at the community and domestic over here, containing a coffee roasters cafe, coffee convention, and event space. Moving up to my first floor, the programs here are all open to public to further educate the people about the production of coffee. So looking at the far right, at the industrial exposition, everything is connected by a ramp, so people are able to witness and see step by step all of the production into making that cup of coffee that you enjoy. These spaces are then further connected by a connecting bridge, which goes into other spaces such as cigar and cosmetic production made from the byproducts of coffee. On this level is also where connections are made between both sides of the town leading into my main project. This was done to increase the connectivity of both sides of the town and for letting the pedestrians to have a more fun and interactive way to go to each side of the towns. Going up to my second floor, this is where most of the institutional activities happen. So after researching, the Coffee Academy will contain 4 main workshops that's located over here in the institutional and experiential block. As the possibilities of coffee and coffee production are endless, I've also some space on the main frame to be extended or expanded in the future. So this floor would be the semi-private floor connected by this connecting tube over here, where the public are also able to go up to and learn and see how people are making coffee and learning about coffee. And this would be my third floor, where the residential starts. I have designed 2 main types of residentials, namely the duplex units as well as the dual key units, which are 2+1. I would also like to create a community above the ground over here by creating a central courtyard connecting all of the residential units. Moving on to my 4th floor, these are the second floor of the duplex units, which also have access to common spaces and pocket spaces above. And that's the end of my floor plans. Next, here is the front elevation from Jalan Teh Choksa, which I further broken down to the 3 parts of my project. This part would be the industrial exposition. The middle part over here will be the institutional and experiential, where the programs are stacked on top of each other. Lastly would be the communal and domestic, where the coffee roasters is over here with the periscope structure emitting coffee odor to attract public coming into my site. This will represent the amphitheater designed to accommodate activities or even events happening at Bukit Mertajam. This would be my live elevation towards Jalan Sungai Rampai, in which you can see over here with the rooftop garden and also the industrial exposition. Moving on to my rear elevation, this is the bigger picture, and now let's look at it zoomed in. So this would be the entry point of the people from the opposite side, mainly students, teachers, and also people working or living at the other side of the town. Students can go over here to the book exchange after school and also the rooftop garden while waiting for their parents to pick them up. I've also designed a community cafe over here as the meeting point for both sides. So here's the rear view from the school of my communal and domestic, where you can see the rooftop gardens over here and also the residentials. The coffee production elements, such as the coffee sorter over here, can be clearly seen, as well as the connecting ramps and bridges. And last but not least, back to the industrial exposition side, where you can see the biogas production over here, and also the storage here, and the drying racks and fermentation tanks, all connected towards the next side of the building. Last but not least, this is the right elevation of both sides of my project, where over here you can see there's a very drastic fall and angle in which I designed my project. So this drawing represents my section cutting through my community and domestic. The spaces here are stacked on each other from the main I-beam frame, also to create multi-level spaces and voids. The ground floor shows mainly the coffee convention and event space, then stacked on top of it is the coffee exhibition gallery, and on top of it is all the residential units, in which you can see different type of units, which is the duplex and also the bulky units. Here is my master section, which I will be cutting through all 3 parts of my building. So here is my communal and domestic, where again the spaces are stacked on top of each other, as well as the gardens over here stacked also, to create a more natural and more Bukit feel, since it's Bukit Mertajam. Like over here, as you can see, all of their gardens are stacked on each other, just an homage to Bukit Mertajam. And here's a cross section of the industrial exposition, where all of the elements can be seen clearly. So here's just a GIF